again!
Yes, people, another edition of Knightz at the RoundTable Discussions where we discuss all sports all the time. Got my guy Tooth with me. How are you doing, sir?
What's up, bruv, man? You enjoy the fights?
The UFC fights, yeah. I thoroughly enjoyed the UFC fights.
Exactly. That's why boxing's dead, bro.
We should be having the Truth hopefully join us in a little bit, but before we go into it, as we do, we ask you to like, comment and subscribe on the channel. Get the comments up, get the views up, get the likes up. Let's have a conversation, because at the end of the day, that's what we're here for. That's what we do, but we want to get interactive with everyone, not just ourselves, but with everybody. But yes,
Trust me, let me say this, bruv, man. You know me, bruv. I'm going to be pushing a lot of buttons, bruv. I'm expecting bare hate in the comment section, bruv. You know what I mean? So I'm going to be triggering a lot of people, man. So leave your comments down below.
I hear that. We are, as Tooth alluded to, it is fighting talk, but it's not UFC. We're going to be discussing the boxing that happened Saturday night. We had AJ versus Pulev, ended in a ninth round stoppage for AJ, retaining his titles. Tooth, just wanted to ask you, I mean, it's not a fight that everyone was excited about, but what did you think of the fight Saturday night?
Yeah, as you said, man, no one was excited for this fight, and the fight itself wasn't exciting. So that's in a nutshell what I think of it. But yeah, he done the business, as we were talking about before, like on our last episode after we went off. You know, we had a little discussion about boxing, and I was just trying to think about what I was saying in that conversation, and it kind of came true. Like, I remember saying, you know, we're going to see shades of the Ruiz AJ, you know, a lot of movement, a lot of dancing, and then he'll probably finish him off later in the fight, which he did. But yeah, just textbook performance. Do you get what I mean? I'll talk about the good things first. All right, I'll talk about the good things first. All right, so I think he's underrated. What I think I underrated is counter punching ability, because that knockdown in the third round was beautiful.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And he used and the knockout blow itself. So the setup, the before uppercuts that he hit him with,
yeah.
that was sick as well. I know we've seen it against the Klitschko fight. You know, that meme where Klitschko's got a giraffe neck. Trust me, bro. Do you get what I mean? His neck is extended like some medieval torture rack, bro. But it is what it is. That was a beautiful punch, and it's still a difficult punch to land. So I'll give him credit on that front. But other than that, there wasn't really anything that made me think, wow. Or there wasn't anything that made me jump off my seat. And now we're going to get into the part where I'm going to trigger people, bruv. So is everyone strapped in?
Hey, before you start making people go nuts and making people upset, let's stick to what actually, if you haven't seen it already, people, because I don't know what you've been doing, or you just haven't got any interest in the fight because it's AJ Pulev. It was rust. I mean, he hasn't boxed since last year. We know that he hasn't boxed, so there was a bit of ring rust. He got 9 rounds under his belt, knocked him down 3 times in the third. Good punches and whatnot. Then let him off. After that, I think. But some people say let him off, but other people could say that he's learned from prime example, the Klitschko fight, where he went for it, he gassed out, and maybe he didn't want to do that again, so he tried to stay patient. But then he kind of let Pulev back in the fight, and then after that, in round 9, he found it, got them uppercuts. They were beautiful uppercuts as well. You know, the uppercuts, because you know, what's it name? Eubank Jr.'s got good uppercuts, bruv. Like, kind of reminded me of that. And then after that, Pulev didn't really want it, and considering all the chat that Pulev was giving, whatnot, even though we all knew it was like he was just chatting nonsense, to be honest, and he never had any chance of winning the fight. AJ did what he needed to do.
Yeah,
pretty much just got the job done. I know a lot of people did. As I said, there was no interest in the fight, but he's got to fulfill his mandatories, in it. And unfortunately, Pulev wasn't mandatory. It was supposed to happen ages ago. It didn't happen because Pulev messed up. But it's a tick in the box. He's got it done now. What are you going to talk about the negatives of the fight, or are you looking forward?
Well, I thought a lot of the things you said were negatives, bro. But it depends how you spin that shit, innit, man? Like, a point that you touched upon was, and I wanted to get into it as well, was what you said about he had him hurt and then he didn't pounce on the opportunity to finish him off. Now, this is an open question. This is for you, and if Truth finally connects to the fucking podcast, maybe he can have on it as well, bro. My man's got some fucking like Sierra Leone Wi-Fi fucking connection, bro. What's going on with that, bro? But yeah. So just on that point about not having the opportunity to pounce on him and finish him off early, what do you think, bro? Do you think that would? I mean, against A-level fighters, and there isn't a lot in this division, is there? It's only like 3 that outside of AJ that you can name, and that's the obvious in it. It's Wilder, Fury, and Ortiz. Do you know what I mean? Everyone else is B level. Do you get what? A lot of people want to throw Dillian White in there, but he just got knocked the fuck out into another existence by Povetkin, who's also a geriatric fucking patient that belongs to
Dillian Wright. Hey, you can't say my boy Dillian Wright is thingy, and you got Ortiz up there who's freaking 89 years old.
Yeah, but who's Ortiz lost to?
Yeah, but who's he beating?
But who's he lost to, bro?
But who's he beating? You're not thinking about who you've lost to. You're not measured by who you've lost to.
I mean, we're not going to make this an Ortiz thing, but I think people can agree that Ortiz's pedigree and his skill set is much of a higher degree than what Dillian White has to offer, bro.
His skill set is.
Dillian White has struggled in many fights, bro. Many
fights. His skill set is, but you're measured by who you beat. No boxer is ever measured by who you faced. Tell me one boxer in the history of boxing that is measured by who he's being beaten by.
I'm going to tell you like this, bruv, and I've said this before, and I'll say it again. You don't judge a boxer. You could tell if someone's good. It doesn't matter if you put
He is good.
It doesn't matter if you put a punching bag in front of them. Now, the level of opponents that Dillian White has faced and struggled against, Ortiz will take them for a walk in the park.
You cannot say that.
Yes,
you cannot say that. You cannot say that.
I'll tell you why. Because Ortiz has not struggled against B level, C level fighters. Do you get what I mean? Ortiz has never. The only time, and even against Wilder, he was battering Wilder, and Wilder's my boy. Ortiz is my boy. But I'll call a spade a spade. Even against the 2 fights that he had against Wilder, tell me if I'm wrong or not. Was he not walking Wilder until he got knocked?
Yeah.
All right then. And that's against.
I'm not saying that Ortiz isn't good though.
That's against. Hold on. That's and we'll end the Dillian White thing on this note. Is that where did I cut off? I did say that Ortiz. The only moment he struggled was that one moment.
Yeah. It was around there.
All right. But have we not seen Dillian White struggle twice against a TV level fighter like Derek Chisora, bro?
Of course.
So that's the point I'm trying to make. But we'll save that for another. We'll save that for another time. My point I was initially trying to make was AJ not pouncing on the opportunity to finish Pulev in the 3rd round. Do you think against A-level fighters he could risk doing that? So against somebody like Wilder, like Fury, like Ortiz, just for the sake of argument, do you think he can risk not pounce it, or do you think opponents like that could come back and potentially hurt him? Because we've seen him hurt in the past. We've seen he was even vulnerable yesterday, whether we like it or not.
He got caught a few straight rights, definitely.
Exactly.
But I think he took them well. And I think he's learned the Floyd Mayweather thing of getting caught and grabbing on for dear life. I think all boxers need to learn that. I think you need to get caught and you need to know how to survive.
You left it.
What do you think that? I mean, do you think, for the sake of argument, he would have a chance of doing that against someone like Fury. Let's say he hurt Fury and then allowed Fury to get back into the fight, knowing that we've seen Fury get hurt in the past and work his way back into a fight, such as the Wilder fight.
Go on, TJ.
Or even someone like Wilder, who we've seen get battered on, like King Kong did, and then come back and finish him in 1 month. Do you think AJ can risk doing that against elite level fighters? Because I don't think he can risk doing that.
I'll let TJ answer that.
I don't think he can. I think he'd be more inclined to do something like that against Tyson Fury, purely because obviously we know he knocked out Wilder and he beat him up, but the jury's still out on how much punching power Tyson Fury actually has. So I think against someone like King, he could probably do it, but the risk is that Fury's the better boxer, so he may just outbox him. He may just outbox him and take him to school if he allows him to do that. Whereas with Wilder, I think he pounces on him because he knows that he can. I think he knows that he can. Just watching the Tyson Fury fight, Fury didn't allow him to get his bearings and do anything like that. He literally just absolutely stopped waving. There was no weights in his gloves. I think we saw that if you get onto Deontay Wilder, you can't let him off the hook. But I think with Tyson Fury, I think you probably could, because if you're relying on your power, that's what I would say on that. But against Wilder, I think it's a...
What I would say is that there's a bigger issue for me than him letting Pulev off the hook. I think that's him gassing.
Yeah.
I don't think he let Pulev off the hook. I just think he got gassed. He gassed, and we've seen it before with Klitschko. We've seen it before in a lot of his fights. I remember against Brazil, he had a little flurry, and then he got gassed. I don't really like the size that he was yesterday. I think it was tactical. I think he was worried about Pulev catching him if he was too light. But his size yesterday, you could tell. After that third round, even towards the end of the third round, I said it to a lot of people. I'm like, Pulev isn't really that hurt. AJ needs to be careful. He can't fully go gas himself out because Pulev was not that. Like, if you saw it, Pulev was hurt, but I don't think Pulev was on the way out, personally. I never saw Pulev like on the way out, because even after the knockdown in the third round, he got straight back up fairly. And then he was still swinging. I know he turned his back, but I think that was more of a strategy. I didn't think he didn't want it anymore. For me, Pulev still has a lot in the tank. I
don't think anyone would have been mad if the referee had stopped it at that point.
Nah,
I would. Nah, come on, man. I know it looked thin because he turned his back. That's the only thing. But look at the knockdown. He got up well within the time, and he was ready. He was ready to go.
And he wasn't wobbling or anything like that. Yeah. He was still coherent. So I would have been mad.
And AJ was gassed. AJ was gassed. I'm sorry.
I don't think he was gassed. I think he was on the way to getting gassed without the amount of punches that he did, which is what I said to Tooth earlier. I think he's learned from his mistakes, which is why he somewhat let him off the hook and regained himself. Because I think he was on the way of being gassed, and then I think he said to himself, "You know what? Let
me go back to jabbing."
I said it to Tooth just before you came on. I was like, he learned from the Vladimir situation where he did it when absolutely gassed and got hurt. And I think he just took his time and was patient. I think the reason why everyone questions it is purely because Pulev was hurt, and why didn't AJ believe that he could get him out of there? Is there a doubt in AJ's mind because of what happened with Klitschko and then what happened with Andy Ruiz, where he's got now a fear that if he goes for it early, that he's going to get hurt by the other person and end up losing?
I think it's a variety of things as well. I don't necessarily disagree that he could have got gassed. He might have got gassed. But at the same time, do you know what I mean? Like a B-level opponent like that. And again, going back to the conversation we had at the Zoom session last time after we finished up with the football, there could have been ring rust involved, which surely was the case.
That's true, ring rust. He had a point in it,
He was he was sparring till like Thursday, from what I read. So, you know, there might have been ring rust involved. He might have got gas. But again, he doesn't look like his younger self. And let me get into this. He doesn't look like his younger self where he can finish people anymore early. Not saying he can't finish people, generally speaking. I'm saying like he doesn't seem like he can finish people early anymore. And I don't know where that stems from, whatever the case may be. But I do see.
I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing though. Look, I don't mind him showing some style of boxing, because I think in the division that they require two styles. Against Fury, I don't think you can go all out.
But let me get into it, because this is more of what I saw of him, like just watching him fight, technically speaking. And this is why I asked that question to kind of segue into this, was, do you think he could get away with doing that against A-level fighters? And this is what I was going to get into, because...
And who's A-level though? For me, A-level is only Fury.
I mean, nah, like...
Listen, because I don't even consider AJ A-level. If I'm considering, because that means I'm putting AJ on Fury's level. I think Fury is A-level. He has proven he's A-level. Nobody else has proven they're A-level yet. You can't lose to Andy Ruiz and then call yourself A-level. I'm sorry.
Yeah, and I'll get into that as well. But the point I'm trying to make is, right now, speaking in context, there are only three and a half big dogs in the division, and that's AJ, Wilder, Fury, and maybe Ortiz is on the fringe. But the reason why I don't agree with the point where you say only Fury's A-level, because I think that's in reference to the other heavyweights of the past, like a Lennox, like a Riddick Bowe, like a Tua, and
to an
Tyson.
Extent, yeah. To an extent, I know you're talking about in this division right now.
Because hold on, bruv. Because if those guys were to come back now, they will mop the floor with all of these heavyweights easily. I don't think any of us would disagree.
Fury. I think Fury would.
Fury can handle himself.
Bruv, I don't think... Listen, Fury's defense, again, I'm going to trigger a lot of people by saying this, but Fury's defense is very overrated. And against somebody like Lennox, Riddick Bowe, Evander Holyfield, even Tua, even David Tua, I think he would struggle. I really do think he would struggle.
I don't think he would. I think his style is too awkward.
The reason why Fury looks good, in my opinion, and again, this might trigger a lot of people, is because the heavyweight division is so undersaturated. Like I said, there's only 3 big dogs. Whereas if you look at the 90s heavyweight division, the 80s heavyweight division, there were killers on killers upon killers. Ernie Shavers, Ed Norton, George Foreman, my man Fraser, Muhammad Ali. Like, the list was on and on. And
but still, none of these guys were 6'7" though. Wait, how tall? I swear Fury's 6'7" or
6'9".
Oh, see, even thinking.
Listen, height and reach is only a stat on the paper, bruv. That doesn't mean shit in a boxing.
I know, but what did he do with that height and reach?
Bruv, it doesn't matter. This is the point I'm trying to make. Muhammad Ali fought giants, bruv. Floyd Patterson fought giants, bruv. Do you get what I mean? Muhammad Ali looked like a matchstick when he fought Sonny Liston. You get what I mean? So let's put all of that shit aside. We know these cats can box. They're killers. And I think they'd easily knock the division.
I can't agree with that. I think Fury, what he does with his size is what makes the difference. I think he's just very awkward. I'm not saying that those guys wouldn't beat him, but to say that they'll wipe the floor with someone like Fury, I don't think they'll wipe the floor with him.
I think they would. As I said, like those.
But who's wiped the floor with Fury though?
Exactly. You tell me who's wiped the floor with Fury. There's no
nobody.
Names. There's no names on that. Wilder, okay, the Wilder fight, the first one was a draw. The second one we won't get into, but it's classified as a knockout win. All right, cool. But one name, over the hill, Klitschko. Do you get what I mean? That you were possibly even on Peds for. Like, I'm not even going to get into it, bruv. Whereas you look at the records of those guys that are named, they all fought each other, and they were all killers, and they were all heavyweight champions. Fury's never defended the belt. Where's Fury's defenses? Where is Fury's defenses? How are you going to tell me Lennox Lewis, who retired, undisputed, unified, lineal champion, is going to struggle against a guy like Fury, bruv? I don't see it happening, bruv. Lennox is just too textbook. Lennox and Lennox has been sparked out, bruv. We spoke about this before.
That's what I'm saying.
But the point is, and this is what I was going to talk about Andy Ruiz as well. He came back and he knocked them both the fuck out, bruv. Do you get what I mean? Oliver McCall, a bit of shady business because Oliver McCall was on crack and he started crying in the corner and all that shit happened. But and that's a viral shit. If none of you guys have seen it,
no.
You know what I mean? Lennox Lewis versus Oliver McCall when, you know, he started crying in the corner and all that shit. And Miles Lane, the legendary referee, stepped in and stopped the fight. But, and this segues into the Ruiz thing because I've read a lot of comments and articles and shit like that saying, oh, this is AJ back at his best. And I personally disagree with that because you got knocked the fuck out by Ruiz. All right, you came back and beat him, but you came back and beat him with points. Now, if you look at those two fights just as a separate entity, who got the better win? Do you know what I mean? Someone that knocked you the fuck out, knocked you down 5 times and made you quit, spit your mouthpiece out and walk back to your corner like a fucking lost dog, or someone that ran around the ring on his fucking bicycle for 12 rounds. Do you get what I mean? Knowing that was enough to win the fight. Do you get what I mean? So I don't think AJ's back at his best until, and I don't think any fighter that says shit like that, or any reporters or fans that say fans are back at their best when they've suffered a loss that they haven't avenged just in the same fashion that they lost to. So if they lost to by a knockout and they haven't come back and avenged that with a knockout, I can never say they're back at their best. Do you know what I mean? They may have improved, but definitely not back at their best. Yeah, with AJ, what I saw last night, man, a lot of gaping holes. Like, for example, he had problems from range and distance. I mean, like every time he tried to box from range and distance, Pulev just rushed him, came in on the inside, clinched him. It was very predictable. You knew it was coming. Do you know what I mean? And there was no angles. There was no shit like that. And before you joined Truth, I did, TJ will vouch for me, and I did give props to AJ. Do you know what I mean? I did say there was some beautiful counter ability there that we haven't seen of him. The uppercuts were really nice. Do you get what I mean? But again, Pulev is a B-level fighter. And if he doesn't have angles against a guy like Tyson Fury, it's difficult for, I don't see him winning that fight.
But that's the thing. I don't literally disagree with it. I totally agree. This is why I'm not calling. From what I saw yesterday, this is why I don't regard AJ as a level fighter anymore. Because what I expect him to be right now is, I expect a lot more lateral movement. I expect a lot more shot selection that he throws. There's nothing apart from his uppercut, which is a beauty, by the way. His uppercut has, his uppercut is a beauty. That's probably about the only thing. He's very basic. I don't see a lot of hooks. I don't see, as you said, angles. His punches are always coming straight, jab and the straight right. I'm not a fan of that. I need to see more. I need to see creating those angles, creating the from lateral movement. He's very static, and this is why I never called him an A-level fighter from yesterday's fight. Go on.
And this is, and just to elaborate on that point, this is against the guy that stood in front of him in the pocket like a punching bag.
Exactly. Yeah, Pulev didn't do much.
Pulev didn't offer much, did he? He just stood right.
Anything. Pulev did nothing.
Exactly. And if we were to play parallel universe here, if you put Tyson in that same fight, you would have seen. Yeah, go on. You guys already know. Teeing off on him, bro. Teeing off on him like a fucking drum carnival, bro. Do you get what I mean? Like just going off on man. But so that aside though, it wasn't the most exciting fight, but he got the job done. Do you get what I mean? As I said, for me, there were more telling signs, but whether that be ring rust, fatigue, whatever it may be.
There's loads of factors. He hasn't fought in a year, let's be honest. But then now there's Pulev, so I don't know how much we can use as an excuse.
Again, going back to that whole pounce, like if he should have pounced on him, man. And I remember on the WhatsApp group we were saying like it looked after that third round, it looked like he was trying to coast through it. Do you know what I mean? Playing and maybe just trying to get the ring rust out of it. Whereas it could be argued if he could have got it done earlier. Do you get what I mean? So
he could, I think he could have, but as I said, for me, I think he went all out. I didn't like his shot selection. I don't know why he didn't start going back to the body and using the uppercut a little bit more when Pulev was trying to hug him towards the end. There's loads of holes, as you said. There's loads of holes. But as I said, as of me right now, he can't do that against someone like Fury. I don't think he could do like someone against Fury. I think
I don't,
I think he could get away with it against someone like Wilder because they both have a shootout, so it'll be a 50-50 regardless. It'll be a 50-50, but against Fury, I don't think you could get away with that. You got someone hurt, you need to finish them, man.
just to touch on that, TJ, sorry, brother, I had to get this in, man. There seems to be a pattern of AJ struggling against old men, bro, because, I mean, like, against Klitschko, you know, he had him in the 6th and then in the 7th or whatever it may have been, Klitschko came back and dropped him. Takam as well, bust his nose. Pulev, Povetkin, all these guys. Like, the way I see it is, if you have the opportunity to finish the guy, you have to be able to finish those guys. You can't give them a second chance, man. Again, in the Klitschko fight, he was this close. I was in the stadium. We all thought it was a wrap. Man watching on TV thought, oh, fuck, like, he blew it. Do you get what I mean? Against the Furies, the Wilders, the Ortizes, I don't think you can run the risk. I'm not saying he can't win those fights, even if he doesn't.
I know, you're right. He can't risk it.
Too great of a risk. It's way too great of a risk, especially somebody like Wilder, who we've seen time and time again. All it takes is one. He's just been blessed by the fucking Zulu gods of the world, and he's got that one-touch killer knockout power, bruv. You could be coasting like King Kong was, and he could still put you on another fucking planet, bruv. But that's on. Sorry, TJ, bruv. I jumped in when you were gonna.
I mean, anyone would have thought from this that AJ lost the fight.
I'm not being. I'm just like I'm a bit. I don't want to say disappointed, but I expected AJ to be at a higher level now, considering the way, as I said, Klitschko was his 16th fight. I like the Povetkin fight. Unlike Tooth, I like the Povetkin fight because even though he got rocked, he showed a better chin, and he learned from his he learned how to finish people. But he seemed to like kind of go backwards with Ruiz. I wanted him to finish him in a rematch, but I knew he wasn't going to take the risk. The Pulev fight yesterday, I personally said, I was saying it in a group, I wanted a 3rd round finish. I wanted a statement from AJ. I nearly had it, but, it took him to the 9th round. It's a bit too many rounds.
Me too, man. I agree, man. Even though I'm not the biggest AJ fan or the biggest Fury fan, we've said this plenty times before, boxing is dead, and this is why UFC is taking over, because the best are fighting the best. Now, if he had gone out there and made a statement, finished it in the 3rd round, man, everyone would have been up in arms to see that. There would have been a high demand for it, to the point where hopefully they couldn't ignore it. Do you get what I mean? So I was all for AJ finishing that fight early. So there you go. There's some roses for AJ. Do you know what I mean? And I will start giving AJ a little bit more credit when we start talking about him and Tyson Fury. But that's up to TJ to bring that up whenever the right time is.
Well, we're gonna move on to, obviously AJ won the fight. We're gonna move on to the comments, or the lack thereof, that he made after the fight. I mean, he was asked by Andy Scott, does he want the Fury fight? He said, ask the fans. Let's see what the fans are saying. He never actually called Tyson Fury out and said, yeah, this is the fight that I want. He left it to Eddie Hearn to answer the question, and even Eddie Hearn didn't really answer the question either. He went around the houses about it. Tooth, I think you got something to play.
I let Tooth answer this one.
I'm gonna slate both of them. Do you get what I mean? I'm gonna go in on both of them. Truth, before we started, I told TJ I've got a couple clips from post-fight interviews from AJ that I'm gonna play on the show. Yeah. And basically, they're the post-fight interviews from Vlad, Takam, Parker, White, Ruiz, and Pulev. Yeah, just small little segments. Yeah. And I'm sure both of you will see the pattern here. Do you get what I mean? It's pretty clear. He pretty much says the same thing after every post-fight interview, or he does the same thing after every post-fight interview. And again, if you didn't know why boxing is dead, this is one of the reasons why boxing is dead. Because in a UFC fight, after the fight, when they ask you these questions, there's no slipping the question or avoiding the question. You get a clear-cut answer. Whereas in boxing, for some reason, you always get these iffy, sitting on the fence, apathetic fucking responses, which I don't know why. But this is right after the the Vlad fight, and he was interviewed by Max Kellerman. Now, obviously, we can't play the interview, but if you get the chance to go watch it on YouTube, you can see Max Kellerman's face is like face palming himself. He's like, bro, this is pathetic. Do you get what I mean? So,
what's next for you? Do you want the rematch? You called out Tyson Fury. What I'm saying about Tyson Fury is that he mentions my name a lot, and he's a excited heavyweight. And I never duck a challenge, so if people want to see me fight Tyson Fury, I'm not going anywhere. I will fight Tyson Fury. If Vladimir wants to fight, I will fight Vladimir once again. I'm being told to wrap, but quickly, do you want to tell anything? You want to say anything to the fight fans in America? Shannon the Cannon Briggs, I got nothing but love and respect for you. Let's go, champ. We out
Shannon the
here.
Cannon.
Worldwide, we're bringing boxing back, and we're having a great time. And secondly and lastly, it's an honor to meet you, sir. You're a legend in the game. Thank you very much. I was hoping you'd say something about Deontay Wilder, but it is what it is. Wilder's a great champion and representing America really well. And if that fight happens next, so be it. You know me. We don't duck anyone. 3.5 years in the game. 19-0.
all right, you get the idea, yeah? This is after the Takam fight.
You mentioned 2018. What are your plans? We'll talk to any hurt later, but what are your plans? What do you want to do? Get my nose cracked back in place, number one. Honestly, continue to grow the sport of boxing, and everyone knows where we're headed. What do people want? That's what I'm interested in.
You get the drift, yeah? Parker fight.
I can't hear that one too tough.
That one's a bit fuzzy. I can't really hear that one.
Basically, they asked him if he wants to fight Deontay Wilder, and he's just listing all the belts that he has. All right,
Yeah.
This is the Dillian White Chisora fight where AJ got in the ring. You remember that one?
Yeah.
All right.
Down there to Adam and Carl, I said, look, Dylan, let's forget about what happened in the past in that fight. British level, we're both at world level now, and we can see what we're about. Do you know what I mean? Forget all that he said, she said. Good fight back then, and now we have to see where we're at right now. But first of all, we know how the list goes, number one, number two, and if they're not available, let's see if we can get on it. If anyone deserves a one title shot, I think it's Dylan.
All right, and this is the Ruiz fight.
This is what we love to do. I respect and who wants to see the third fight?
Nobody said anything there. I asked that, man.
Listen, if you heard, we're gonna do a third.
All right, and then this is the Pulev fight. This is what happened last night.
Looking at where I'm gonna put my shots, put them together, and then when they're successful, they're successful. As I said, it's just less talk and more action. I don't even really want to do an interview because I just want the fans to appreciate the hard work. Everyone go home and have a lovely Christmas, and we'll reunite in 2021. I totally respect that. I'm just going to ask a couple of questions from the fans because the people do want to hear from you. You've had this laser-like tunnel vision throughout the preparation for this. I don't even think we've mentioned any names. But now, with a view to the future, are you prepared to entertain the talk with undisputed? You ask the fans, I'm not asking you, dude. That's your job as a promoter for Sky. You ask the crowd what they want to see. I'm up for anything. Look at the resume. You ask them, you ask.
Are we getting a pattern here? I think it's clear, bruv. Every time he gets asked a question about who he wants to fight next, he's slipping more questions in these interviews than he's slipping punches in his fights, bruv. It's actually getting annoying now. It's really getting annoying. It's getting to the point where it's killing the sport. Why can't you just forget all the chit chat? Just go out there and say Wilder or Fury next. Drop the mic, walk off. It's almost like these interviewers have to pressure him and corner him in an angle to get him to say a name. And these are only little snippets, yeah. So I don't want to make it sound like by the end of the interviewers didn't get him to say a name, because in most of the cases he did eventually fucking cough it up and spit it out once he had his back against the ropes. But it's a case of every single time it's like, what do the fans want? What do the fans want? I remember after the Takam fight, he went online on his Twitter and he put a poll. It's like, bruv, who gives a fuck what the fans want? The best need to fight the best. Do you get what I mean? And this is again what we were talking about with the Terence Crawford and Bud thing, Terence Crawford and Spence thing last time, which was off air. It's the same fucking principle here, man. You got idiot fans which are preventing fights from happening simply because they think X and Y doesn't deserve a fight, or this and that, or they're so aligned with one fighter that it's like they will ride with that fighter and his decisions to the fucking grave, bro. And it's stupid. It's so stupid. It's like if he just gone out there and said Wilder next, Fury next. Do you get what I mean? As I said, it would have put a demand on the promoters to make that fight happen. No one was going to pay pay-per-view anymore to fucking see him fight a Pulev or a Usyk or Wilder fight number 347 in the fucking European rankings. Like that wasn't going to happen, bro. Do you get what I mean? The demand, the pressure would have been there. And this is why, again, UFC is taking over, because those same questions are asked in the UFC. Bro, you're going to have a catalogue of names coming out. I want to fight him and him in the main event, X, Y, Z. Like, every single time. Here, what do the fans want? Eddie Hearn, he's looking candidly at Eddie Hearn to jump in and take over the rest of the interview. And same with the fucking the PBC guys, like, I've got to go back and talk to Al Heyman first. It's like, off these people's nuts. Do you know what I mean? You're a fighter, bruv. Do you understand what I mean? It annoys me, bruv. It gets right under my skin. But it's not just to shit on AJ completely, because I'm going to give my man some props. As much as he's been apathetic and wishy-washy and sitting on the fence with his responses, I personally believe he's been actively trying to chase Fury. Do you get what I mean? And there's these little telltale signs where, as much as Eddie Hearn is a fucking dickhead, he invited Fury to come ringside and watch this fight. Am I right or wrong?
Yeah.
He invited Fury to come sit ringside. Now, correct me if I'm wrong. When Fury was on Wilder's nuts and he was trying to get a fight with Wilder, wasn't he flying out to the US and jumping in the ring and singing fucking gypsy songs and doing all that shit? Do you know what I mean? The whole AJ's telling you to pull up, and you're like, nah, Eddie Balls, Eddie Hearn, whatever the fuck his name is, can fuck off, and then after the fight's over, you come out with this Instagram message. It's like, bruv, I don't understand this shit, man. Are you guys seeing the same shit I'm seeing, or?
Nah, I'm tired of it, to be honest. Like, it's got on my nerves, like the whole saga between these three guys. Well, not even the three. I'm not gonna lie. The common denominator is AJ and his team, to be honest, because Wilder and Fury have fought. Although I did know that the Wilder Fury fight was much more easier to make. I thought I honestly still think the Fury AJ fight is easy to make. I think that's still going to be made. I don't know. I personally couldn't tell you what the holdup is, because they've agreed terms. So I can't get in there and say, because anything would just be speculation. I can't tell you what's holding up them saying, you know what, next year, so and so this time. Well, at the moment, apparently it is speculation, but Wilder is holding up the AJ Fury fight. So I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I've not checked that side of things out, but again, I don't understand how Wilder can be holding it up, because when they announced the Fury AJ fight, which was what, March, some shit, March. Yeah, something like March, between March and June. The rematch clause or the trilogy fight in the contract was still
valid.
Do you know what? Yeah, it had not expired. So I don't see how Wilder's got anything to do with this, bruv. But then again, if we're going on being a man of your word and shit like that, bruv, Wilder gave this dickhead 2 opportunities, bruv. Am I right or wrong? Do you know what I mean? He gave him the first chance to fight him, and then he gave him a rematch, even though he didn't have to, bruv. So that's what he gets for showing goodwill and good faith in this twat. And AJ Fury's turning around and being like, yeah, your contract expired, I'm not going to fight you, blah blah blah. Do you know what I mean? You got the biggest payday out of your career twice by fighting this man. You got You got your belt collection in check by fighting this man. The belt that you never had, you now own. And now you're turning around and ducking him. Do you know what I mean? And this is what I mean. Like, I'm not going to get into Glovegate and shit like that. But if you think you could truly beat this man and you beat him so convincingly the second time, and both of you have fought twice, the first one being a draw, second one being a knockout for you, it makes perfect sense for a trilogy.
Yeah.
I think one of the issues with the trilogy, I think initially, obviously the first things first, the thing that put everything to halt was Corona. That put everything to halt. I think Fury would have fought Wilder in the third fight based on the fact that AJ had to fulfill his mandatory. So that fight would have happened because Fury's just like, let's do Wilder 3 because AJ's got this mandatory. Unfortunately, Corona messed that all up, and the fact that Wilder was injured messed it up as well. Now I think what Fury, I believe Fury is looking at is that contract's expired. 2021, I haven't really got anything on. AJ could be available. I want to be undisputed now because I've done what I've needed to. I've held every belt at one time. Now I want them to hold them all at once. So why not get this fight going in 2021? Now, it can be seen as shady because the fact of the matter is Wilder gave you 2 opportunities. The first one, he didn't need to because you were coming back. So he didn't need to give you the first one. The second one, there was no choice. That fight had to go ahead. So the gentleman thing to do would be like, give Wilder that third fight, to handle the business and go from there. But unfortunately, so many different factors have messed that up. Wilder is holding it up to a certain extent because he's trying to take it to court. Yeah. So he is kind of holding it up in that sense. But do I personally want to see Fury versus Wilder 3? No, because Wilder for me is done. But in terms of sportsmanship and the fact that Wilder did bring you in, fulfill it. And get it over and done with. But do I personally want to see it? No, I have no interest in it because the same thing's going to happen again. Maybe not by knockout, but Fury's going to win again. It's still going to be a W for Fury. Another thing that's holding this fight up is the WBO is the other factor that's holding this fight up because they basically turned around and said to AJ that we've allowed you to have 2 voluntary defenses because technically Pulev was he mandatory for the IBF or the which one was it?
Oh no, IBF, yeah.
The IBF, he was a mandatory for IBF. So technically WBO said you had a voluntary defense and whatnot. So they're basically turned around and said to AJ, either you fight Usyk early next year or you vacate the belt. Now, AJ fighting Fury without the belt makes it pointless because we all wanted undisputed heavyweight champion of the world. That's another aspect that's holding it up. And the final one that's holding it up, which we all know and we all hate, and which is why people are going more over to the UFC, is the promotion and TV rights that are there. Now, obviously, you've got Bob Arum and you've got Eddie Hearn. Don't talk to me about Frank Warren. He's just a puppet. He has no say in what goes on in this fight. He's not the big dog in this, even though he tries to make it that way. His say means absolutely nothing. We got Bob Arum and we got Eddie Hearn. And then we've got 4 different TV companies that have rights to these guys because BT Sports got Fury over here. ESPN's got Fury over there. AJ's got contractual obligation with Sky and he's got DAZN. So we've got all of that to deal with after everything else. So a lot of it is purely politics that's basically holding up this fight from going ahead. And I think the biggest one that's they're gonna have to overcome is how far Wilder goes with this taking it to court, unless Fury just basically says, all right, cool, boom, let's do this then. Early 2021, I'll fight you. AJ, you deal with Usyk in your mandatory. And then in late summer 2021, we come together and do this thing. I think that's the only way we're going to see a smooth transition from nothing happening because we've got so many obstacles in the way to let's get it done late summer after Fury fights Wilder and AJ fights Usyk. But even then, after that, we've still got to consider Povetkin and White too, and who gets the mandatory from that. So there's so much nonsense in boxing, which is why I don't get on too for mentioning UFC, because there's no politics, but all of this obviously is under one body. But that's just basically all the stuff that can hold up this fight, which is trivial. It's long, bruv. It's so long, bruv. Like when I was researching it and reading, I was like, "Are you being serious, bruv?"
Yeah.
I was like, all of this just to get two men to fight for the undisputed heavyweight championship of the world. Like, come on, bro. Like,
look, there is all this politics, yeah, and I do agree. But again, as someone who's been following this for a while, I can tell you this much, bruv. And never in the history of boxing has it got to this extent. And again, me and Truth were discussing this a few days ago after the football podcast. Bruv, the only fights that were difficult to happen in the 2000s and in the 90s was Tyson Lewis, and that got made in a blink of an eye. Do you get what I mean? Because that was Showtime and HBO when they came together, the money was right. And there was Floyd and Manny. Do you know what I mean? Same thing again. HBO, Showtime, Bob Arum, Floyd. They eventually got that fight done, but that fight was more of there was a lot of, like, you know, how they're going to do the drug testing, A side, B side kind of politics as well involved.
And Floyd didn't Floyd hated Bob at that time as well. Like, he never forgave Bob for. Exactly. So there was loads of
and Marquez knocked Pacquiao into fucking back.
And that messed up a lot. That messed up a lot.
Yeah, that did mess up a lot.
You know what I mean? So
say that again, sorry.
After that as well.
Tooth, you frozen.
Exactly. So, but I just wanted to. Can you hear me?
No, you're breaking up. Say that whole thing that you just said. Like after the Marquez. You said after Marquez.
Oh, yeah. So after Marquez knocked Pacquiao back to the Philippines, that whole fight got kind of deflated. Do you get what I mean? Because do you know what I mean? Floyd was like, why am I going to come back and fight this guy when he just lost to the guy that I took to school?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Even though I didn't personally agree with it, but I understood why he wasn't interested in the fight anymore. Regardless of that, there's a few points that I just wanted to rebuttal that TJ brought up, pardon me, and there, bruv, you're bang on, bro. You're completely bang on. The first thing that you said, I made a quick note of them. So the first thing that you said, that the Wilder fight is not interesting, and I get that.
No, to me, I think a lot of people would want to see it, but just to me, I'm not interested in it no more. But a lot of fans, like, it's still a big fight to be made. But you know what it is for me? I just want to see AJ Fury now. I'm not really interested in seeing a third Wilder fight. I mean, after AJ Fury, because I you know me already, I fully expect Fury to win that fight. But after AJ Fury, if Fury wanted to go back and fight Wilder again, then fine. But for me personally, now I just want to see Fury AJ. But I'm not saying that I never want to see Wilder Fury again. I just don't want to see it now.
Yeah,
bro,
I agree.
You don't stand alone with that opinion. The Truth agrees with you, brother. Everyone else in my WhatsApp group and another one, they're all like, they literally said the same thing that you said. No one's interested in a Wilder fight. Wilder's done. And that is the general consensus. That is the general consensus. But this is what I mean. When we look at everything as a whole, first of all, how can it not be interesting when it was the biggest fight of 2018?
No, you're getting it wrong. Hold on. We're not. Wait, hold on. Let me just correct you, because you just used the wrong thingy. We're not saying it's not interesting. What we are saying is that right now, we would prefer just to see an undisputed champion. Let AJ fight Fury, get undisputed. If Wilder comes back in, so be it. I'd love to see the trilogy fight. Boom, it's gonna make history. But as of right now, we just want to see an undisputed champion. We're tired, man.
Bro, I was going to get into that before you jumped in. I was literally going to get into
it. Sorry. Go.
Because TJ talked about WBO, Usyk and things like that, So I was going to get into that. And this is where you have to start adding up the dots, because the boxing outlets and the news that you get from boxing is all biased. It's all biased. As you said, Sky Sports will never write something good about Wilder because they have no allegiance with Wilder. They don't owe Wilder nothing. And it's the same thing with ESPN. ESPN will never write anything good about AJ or Wilder because they're aligned with Fury. So this is what I mean. But when you step back at it and look at it objectively, you understand, oh, this is all bullshit. Do you get what I mean? The fact that, again, I understand people want to see an undisputed. I do too. I've always been an advocate for the best fighting the best. And, you know, I've said it plenty of times why the UFC shits on boxing right now. Boxing is dead food. But I understand from a fan's point of view, while Wilder is not an interesting, or people are not interested in seeing him fight for several reasons. All right. First of all, not a lot of people like him. Second of all, he seemed like he was full of excuses after the Fury fight, which lost him even more fans, or lost him a lot more, you know, attention, made him look bad. And third of all, it's like Fury schooled him. Again, I'm not going to get into the whole controversial side of things, but if we take the result for what it is, Fury schooled him. Do you get what I mean? But in terms of interest, that's where I disagree, because I know for a fact if that fight was to happen, everyone will be on it. It's the trilogy fight, the controversy of the second and the first fight.
Yeah, of course. I agree.
It was the two biggest fights of the calendar year when they. Do you know what I mean? 2018, 2020, no other boxing fight generated that much income, bro. And Canelo got paid 360 something plus by DAZN to fight Rocky Fieldings. Do you get what I mean? And that didn't. You get me? And that didn't even gather any sort of trend, or do you get what I mean? It didn't generate no hype like the Wilder and the Fury fight, right? And again, you said Wilder is done, and that is my boy, bruv. So I have to jump to his defense. He only lost one fight against an elite level heavyweight, bruv. See, this is what I mean. Again, this is why boxing is dead, bruv, because fans are a bit too, do you know what I mean? They're too judgmental with this shit. In the UFC, do you know what I mean? In the UFC, if Justin Gaethje just lost to Khabib, no one out here is saying Justin Gaethje's done. Do you get what I mean? And I can list off plenty. Francis Ngannou lost to Stipe. No one out there came out and said Francis is done. Do you know what I mean? Many fighters. So it's really hard to come with that sort of judgment and say Wilder is done simply because he lost one fight in a division where one.
It's not just because he lost one fight. My whole thing is there's a multitude of reasons why I believe Wilder is done. That fight alone could be a reason. The other reason why I say that is because he's not going to do anything different to what he did in the first fight, because he's not willing to he's been out injured for so long, and he's trying to jump back into a fight with Fury where he's been injured, so he can't learn. There's nothing he can't learn. Huh?
Bro, that's absolutely fine, but that shouldn't warrant whether he should be done or not done. He's only got on paper, whatever's happening outside of the ring with his trainers, with what he's learning and not learning, if he's improving or not improving, that's got nothing to do with him being done. Someone I would consider done is Amir Khan, Kell Brook. Those are the people that I would. Do you know what I mean? Those are the.
They're not even done, bruv. They're retired in the old folks' home, bruv. They're just looking for a payday.
Yeah, I mean? Those are the people that I will come out and point blank say, look, these people are done. Do you know, they should never enter a boxing ring ever again, bro. People are going on like Wilder's on some Kell Brook level or some fucking Amir Khan level, bro. That's not true. He's only lost one fight. And again, we won't get into the controversy. We'll save that for another time. But that fight, both fights, was shrouded with controversy, bro. And then the way I'm going to link this in with AJ and the WBO, bro, before the Pulev fight, AJ already came out and said in 2021 that the Fury fight is not happening. It's not happening. Do you know what I mean? I sent the link on the WhatsApp group earlier.
He never said 2021. He said the next fight most likely is going to be Usyk because Fury doesn't know what he's doing, which is, I think he's fully fair in saying that, because Fury was supposed to fight in December, but it was cancelled. We actually don't know when Fury's going to fight next because of Wilder going to a mediatory.
But he did say in that, and the exact quote is, "I will bet my house on it that I'm not fighting Fury in 2021." But everything he said
next. Also... He said he's not fighting Fury next. He hasn't not in 2021. 2021 is a long time.
Yeah, I know, but bruv, how many times do these guys box in a year? And then given the coronavirus pandemic, like all things considered, AJ's not going to be fighting twice in 2021. Do you get what I mean? That's if definitely
he's not. Then
so, and
it's going to kill boxing even more, but God.
Bruv, listen, AJ's not going to box more than one time in 2021. all things considered, coronavirus, the difficulties of getting a fight with Fury. And I'll get into the fact that TJ pointed out about Sky Sports BT trying to come to a deal to, bruv, that fight is definitely not happening in 2021. And AJ, he has sight beyond sight. He can see it. He knows it. He knows it. He came out point blank and said that fight is not going to happen in 2021. So he's going to have to end up fighting Usyk, right? Because that's his mandatory for the WBO. And that's the fight they're looking to make, because Usyk is on Sky Sports. Usyk is signed to Matchroom. Do you get what I mean?
It's easy.
He's also, it's easy. It's easy. They could get that fight done overnight. Now, in fact, I wouldn't be surprised if they've already signed, sealed, delivered that fight, but they haven't even, they've not released it out to the press. Do you get what I mean? So with those pieces in play at the moment, of course it would make sense for a Wilder Fury trilogy. Of course it would make sense. Because we already know AJ's calendar year is going to be booked up. All things considered, who is Fury going to fight? Who is Fury? Is he going to fight number 576 in the European rankings again? Is he going to go on the Euro bum bashing tour like he did after the first Wilder fight? You get what I mean? So, that that brings me on to the point that even if AJ and Wilder agree on the fight, which they did, they already agreed on it in June or March, whenever it was, when Sky Sports came out with the fucking posters on Twitter and all this stuff, and they were both doing interviews and Instagram stories and all that shit. The one key element that was missing out of all of this was who's going to show the fight. Because one of them is signed with BT, the other one signed with Sky. Neither channel is going to let the other channel take the rights for the fight and solely allow that channel to show the fight. Do you get what I mean? So that's what I'm saying. Like in the grand scheme of things, it's cack basically. It's so it's fucking dead, and that's all I have to say.
Truth, what you got to say about that? I mean, it's a whole. I mean, this is the issue that obviously we've all spoken about in the WhatsApp group about boxing and all the politics, bro. It's tiring, it's boring, it's long. But how do you respond to what myself and Tooth has said?
I agree with everything what Tooth has said. I think in terms politically speaking, the fans need to start putting pressure. I don't care who you support. I don't care if you like Wilder. I don't care if you like Fury. I don't care if you like AJ. The fans need to get together and be like, we want this fight to happen. You guys make this fight happen, or we are not watching any other flipping AJ versus any other CB level fighter. I didn't want to see AJ Usyk. That doesn't interest me. AJ Usyk does not interest me one bit. I don't care. Even if AJ can lose, what does it actually do for people that want to see a better fight? What does it do for people that want to see AJ versus thing, who want to see undisputed? It's tiring. And look what happens if Usyk wins. Look what happens if Usyk wins. What happens if Usyk wins? There's a rematch clause.
Yeah.
Rematch clause. So they have to rematch. So that cancels out the whole of 2021. You know? It's just a huge mess. So fans need to come together. Forget supporting people. Forget supporting one side. I don't care about it no more. I like AJ. But I don't care. I'm telling people, like, if they're looking at this, look, if these guys are fighting anyone but, between themselves, I'm talking about these two. If they fight anything but undisputed, do not watch it. Hit them in their pockets. Do not watch it. It's that simple. It's that simple. I'm not a fan. I won't be on here telling people to go stream, but go up in a bush or something and watch down, like what they used to do in the Caribbean, like watching in the matches from the stadium. But no, like forget watching these dead matches no more. I'm not gonna lie. I didn't watch AJ Pulev in terms. Well, I didn't watch AJ Pulev. You get what I'm saying? I don't watch AJ Pulev because I'm not interested. I am not interested. Anyone else but AJ Fury, as of now, I am not going to watch. Put it as simple as that.
Can I just pose something to you, lot? Because obviously we going back to what AJ said after the fight. I think if we break it down and put aside the fact that he didn't call out Tyson Fury's name, he did say, whoever has got the belt, I want the belt. If it is Tyson Fury, let it be. He said he's focused on his legacy and the belt. That's it. That hence why he's not calling names. Was that AJ basically saying, and it links into what two said, the fact that probably what's more than likely going to happen is Fury versus Wilder 3. Is that why AJ didn't call no name? Because he's thinking to himself, I'm not going to get this fight. At least it won't be my next fight. So before I start calling out Fury and he goes and loses to Wilder in the third fight, let me not just say nothing and let me just say the belt and the legacy and all the rest of it.
Let me just answer two, because personally, I don't really care what AJ says, to be honest. Boxers, I've learned that boxers, I don't care what they really say, because what they say and what they do are two different things. He could beat around the bush, he can play the political card all he wants. It doesn't really matter at the end of the day. It's all about what they actually do. He said it himself. He's like, "Oh, bare people are talking," but you know, it's what you actually go and do. Action is what speaks. So let's just see from his actions, like his words. At this moment in time, boxers' words mean zilch. Zilch. As I said, UFC, it means something. These guys say, "Oh, I'm calling out so and so." You know, they're getting on the phone to Dana White, and they be like, "Yo, I want to fight him. Make it happen." Dana White comes out and says, "We're trying to make so and so happen." And if there's any flaws in the plan or anything, he'll come and say it. But with boxers, you know, it's all about beating around the bush, going around the flipping next forest and trying to find out answers. So I don't really care what boxers say, to be honest. Like, I want to read too much about what AJ says, honestly.
Yeah, I and on the last point that you made, Truth, I agree with it, man. But I just say, look, the best have to fight the best. Like you were just saying about if it ain't AJ versus Fury, you don't want to see it. Bro, I just want to see the best fight the best. I don't even mind if AJ fought Wilder right now or Ortiz fought Fury right now, because these guys are the cream of the crop. I just want to see the best of the best. Like we were saying last time about the middleweight division back in the 80s. Sugar Ray Leonard fought Marvin Hagler. Marvin Hagler fought Roberto Duran. Roberto Duran fought Tommy Hearns. Tommy Hearns fought Marvin Hagler. Like these guys were all fighting each other all the time. The heavyweight division in the 90s. Evan Holyfield, Lennox fought Mike Tyson fought Evander Holyfield, XYZ. They were all fighting. They were always fighting each other. All the top guys were always fighting each other, which made great fights. And then coming back to this point about what AJ said is kind of alluding to the point that I made before. I think they already know that it's going to be Usyk next, and the fact that they know it's going to be Usyk next, they're just AJ's just like playing it down. And this is typical old AJ. That again, from the interviews that I played, is always the same interview. Do you know what I mean? It's what the fans want. I have mandatories. Do you get what I mean? It's nothing new. It's the same old story.
Okay, I can actually connect it to it. Actually makes actually a good connection. So you actually think because he's definitely fighting Usyk next, and he knows of the backlash if he actually comes out and says, "Oh, we're fighting Usyk next," there'll be a huge more backlash and people be less interested.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's why he didn't say it?
Listen, this is all just me taking a best guesstimate. I might be completely fucking wrong, and tomorrow the deal for the Fury fight has been signed and it's going to be in March 2021. I might be completely wrong, but just adding up the dots and taking a best guesstimate, this is what I think is going to happen. Now, I know in the comment section below, they're probably going to be thinking like, "Oh, he knows his shit. He was completely wrong," but this is just history playing out itself again, to me, in my eye. And with AJ, is like I said, if he had just come out and it came out straight out of the horse's mouth, Fury next. Do you get what I mean? Pull up. And he has done. To his credit, he has. Eddie Hearn invited him to have like a fucking ringside seat and all that shit. Now it's looking like Fury's not wanting the fight. Do you get what I mean? Because he's not pulling up. He's not addressing none of the fight. Frank Warren is not addressing the fight. And then
Frank Warren doesn't mean nothing.
Frank Warren's good, bruv. Frank Warren's my boy, bruv. But again, they're not addressing the fight.
Eddie Hearn. See, but this is what I'm saying. Eddie Hearn did say, look, he's gonna try and make. He promised that he's gonna try and make the AJ Fury fight next. And you know, he said he's gonna get on his bike and get it done. But as I said, what can we really take from what they say?
Eddie Hearn doesn't do himself any favors as well, because the way he talks about these fighters is so disgusting. Do you know what I mean? Like, he was talking about before Amir Khan signed with Matchroom, he was slagging him off, bruv. Slagging him off to the point where you thought, rah, is this like a rap beef? Is this a battle rap? You get what I mean? The amount of dirt he was throwing on Amir Khan's name was just like, yo, you need to chill out, bro. And then he signed Amir Khan, and he wonders why Amir Khan got dirty with the Kell Brook fight, and he went and fought Terence Crawford instead. Do you know what I mean? And he got everything he deserved. And it's the same thing with Tyson Fury. The amount of times that Eddie Hearn has slagged off Tyson Fury. Do you get what I mean? Like, he just called him a dosser in the last interview he was in. It's like, bruv, if you're trying to make the fight happen, that's not the way to go about it, bruv. Do you get what I mean? And it's the same reason why Dillian White, when he was out of contract a few years ago, you remember he was looking for options. He went to America to talk with Al Heyman and then Frank Warren wanted to sign him, but Frank Warren didn't do himself any favors by kind of talking sideways about Dillian. So it's like these promoters need to like figure out how to treat these fighters with a little bit more respect, and then they might get these deals over the line with, because as you said, the politics is one thing to deal with, and now we have to go into the fucking personals and what he said, she said shit about it, and it's like, bruv, it's too exhausting, bruv. It's way too exhausting.
I mean, it is exhausting. I mean, people just watching this, you're probably exhausted and thinking to yourself, bloody yeah, we're never going to see this fight ever happen from all the facts and the knowledge that we've been dropping. But
last question, and we'll wrap it up on this. How do you think the AJ Fury fight will happen? What do you think needs to? I think if they were to do it, they need to pay Usyk step aside money. Go to the WBO. Go to the WBO and say, look, we got a bigger fight than the Usyk fight, which is a undisputed unification fight, a lineal fight, which will trump in terms of money, exposure, everything. It will trump fight in a mandatory. All right. Then they need to get BT Sports and Sky Sports, and it's easier said than done, but you know, put differences aside and just do what Showtime and HBO done with Tyson Lewis and Manny and Floyd. And that's the only way I see this fight happening.
I agree.
And if all of that, if all of that is done, then we'll start seeing the cracks and seeing who is actually ducking who, or who doesn't want the fight. Because then everything else is taken care of. The belts, the mandatories, the TV rights, everything else is taken care of. Then we'll find out who really wants it or who doesn't want it.
I agree. I actually think, look, but that's when you put it like that, it makes it seem like it's simple. But I agree, it is. I think it can be that simple. Both parties come together, they go to all the organizations and be like, guys, this is undisputed. Undisputed trumps everything. I don't think any organization is going to be like, oh, you know what? No, you got your mandatory. Even Usyk, if WBO, okay, if they went to the WBO and be like, look, this is undisputed. This is going to crown, you know, the number one. You know, Usyk could wait until afterwards to get his fight. I believe that WBO would be like, you know, fine, let's do it. This is exposure. This is the biggest fight. This is money involved. This is the biggest fight. But I fear there's some parties that don't truly want to see it happen. So
this is the perfect time to make that done, because what you said about all the governing bodies, the only one governing body which doesn't give a fuck about money and only gives a fuck about mandatory, and they're boxing purists, is the IBF. And that mandatory just got taken care of right now. So the IBF are the most strictest when it comes to mandatories, and they don't care about money or anything of that nature. They only care about the boxers. That title has now been settled. AJ just defended that against Pulev, and they need to get another mandatory for that for that title. So in that time, so for them to sort that out, this is the perfect time for them to go to the rest of the governing bodies, WBA, WBO, WBC, and say, look, you guys don't play hardball when it comes to mandatories. Let's pay the mandatory step aside money, make this undisputed fight. And since it's going to be an undisputed fight, there's going to be more money involved, which means more sanctioning fees, and everyone gets paid than it would do if it was to defend one belt. And it's going to be against two global superstars, because let's face it, AJ and Fury are, do you get what I mean? They are superstars now. So once that's taken care of, I'm sure the TV deal will fall into place as well. And then we'll see who wants it and who doesn't want it. But on that note, DJ, I'll throw it back to you. Back to you, Jeff.
Thank you very much. Just as my final point, you lot made it sound so simple, and it is really that simple. But unfortunately, we live in a world in which it's all about money, and some people would just rather see their individual belt being defended because it will be all about them and it'll be all their money, rather than trying to crown an undisputed heavyweight champion of the world, which would probably generate 10 times more money. But it's stupid. It's politics. Me personally, I think the other thing we need to take into consideration is the pandemic and the fact that people aren't allowed in stadiums.
That's true.
Which is probably another reason why Wilder Fury hasn't happened yet. Because I think you can't. Whereas you can do the Pulevs and the U6 with only like 1,000 people in the stadiums, you can't have Fury Wilder behind 1,000. You can't have AJ Fury, which is why I do believe, if anything, we need to see Fury versus Wilder, and whilst that's going on, AJ can defend the WBO. But whilst all of that is going on, Bob Arum, Eddie Hearn, Sky Sports, BT Sport, ESPN all sit around the table before these fights are made and while these fights are made, and say whoever wins out of Fury and Wilder, and if AJ beats Usyk in that late summer, this undisputed thing is going to be sorted. And there's no more ducking this, ducking that, avoiding questions. Oh, we got to speak to this person. We got to speak to that person. No, it's all been done. Listen, you've been in your houses for however long, right? You lot can have these conversations whilst this is all going on. Wilder gets his rematch, Usyk gets his mandatory, and we get the undisputed heavyweight championship of the world defended in September, wherever it may be. If it's against Wilder, somewhere in America, if it's against Fury, 90,000 in Wembley, whatever. But something needs to be done, because or else we're going to lose another generation in which we're not going to have an undisputed heavyweight champion of the world. It's that simple. But we will watch this space. People probably going to need a drink after this. After this, but we will watch this space. Just want to say before we go, make sure you like, subscribe, comment on this. Lots of talk going. I want to say thank you to Tooth and the Truth for joining me. Thank you, gentlemen.
Safe.
Yep, we got plenty more content going out, plenty more for you to watch. Truth is about to start crying right now because Arsenal have lost 1-0 at home to Burnley.
I fucking called it. I called that shit.
Unfortunately, Truth's got no one to blame but Granit Xhaka, but we're going to go off air and talk about that. But until next time, people, thank you very much for your time, and peace.
Peace.